Alright, so we got this Remington 700 chambered in 7mm. Customer brought it in. Scope was moving. You can see some slight where the scope actually slid. It was taken to a gunsmith and they properly mounted the scope. And let me pull this cap off. You'll see that these are not lapped in at all. See how it's all black? I'll show you when I get the new rings on what they look like when they're lapped in. But also, this post right here, you can see that it was starting to back out. So the scope kept coming loose, and he kept having to tighten this bolt. And that's because it was backing out. So, I don't know what brand or flavor these rings are for, or what they are, but they're not meant for a 7mm. I'll tell you that. So, I ordered up some loop holds. These are the backcountry cross slot. I like these. They have a solid bracket, and that's threaded into the base. It's not a bolt that is pressed in, and I'll show you that. It also has the top, the cap has 2 screws on either side. Let me pull this cap off and I'll show you before and after. So you'll see it's all black. And after I get these mounted on here, we'll make sure that they're aligned, and then we'll lap them in, and I'll show you that. I'll probably time lapse from here until I'm done lapping, unless I have a few things to say along the way. Make sure when you take these off, you keep them oriented the same way, front, back, side to side. You know, it doesn't really matter much right now because they're not lapped in, but it's good practice to keep them in the right orientation all the time. This rifle has 2 slots. I just want to make sure that I put it in the right spot. Make sure there's enough clearance. See if I put this up to the front. It doesn't fit. So I gotta go in the back slot. And these are a T27 torqued to 45 inch-pounds. So I have my torque wrench here. And we'll just screw this in all the way up to 45. 45. And double check them. I always release the tension. Usually don't have to, but I like to do that so I know the spring is not under tension, so it doesn't wear out prematurely. So these right here are just alignment pins, so make sure there's no dust or dirt, any debris in there. Wipe these off. Okay. You can see those are pretty much aligned. So this is my lapping bar. You can see I've used it a few times. So what we'll do is we'll put some lapping compound in here, and we'll just rock this back and forth as we go back and forth this way. And we'll just sand it in. You can see how it took some of that material away. The lapping compound is pretty much just sandpaper. Liquid sandpaper. You want to try to keep this out of the screw holes. So initially, I'll just do the bottom ones like this, and then we'll see where we're at, see how much we need to go. Alright, so you can start to see we're wearing on the front and back. So they're kind of pointed down at each other. Even though the pins were aligned, the bar is not completely aligned. So if you put your scope in there, the only parts that would be touching is less than what is grayed out right here, right now. So that's why scopes slip, and you want to lap them in. That way your rings have as much surface contact to the scope body as possible. That way it will not slide. So what I'm going to do now is put some more on there, put some on the top rings, and then I'll just keep lapping it, and then I'll crank the screws down a little bit more, lap it in some more, take it apart, put some more compound in there, lap it, tighten it, lap it, tighten it, just back and forth. And then we'll continuously check it, make sure that we're not going too far, and once we get at least 75% contact, or the 75% of this grayed out section across the whole pad on the bottom. The top is not quite as critical, but you want at least 50% on the top, more if possible, but you don't want to go too far. If you go too far, your rings will clamp together and you won't get a tight pinch on the tube. When you tighten and when you torque this down and these touch on both sides, your scope will move. So we'll get going on this, we'll time lapse this, and we'll come back after. Good. Alright, you can see we're getting there. So you can see that even in the middle, there's still black there, but it's going gray. So that's near 100% contact. We'll check the bottoms and see how they look. That one's not quite as much as the front one, but you could see that it's graying all the way around. So these top rings are good. Those look really, really good. Those are good too. So what I'm going to do now is get this all cleaned up, get the rings clean, get the threads cleaned out, get the top rings, the caps cleaned out, get the screws cleaned off. And I'll take the camera off the stand and after I get it all cleaned up, I'll get you a closer shot and show you how they're grayed out. And it's not the, even though they're matte finished, there's a bit of a sheen to it, and you'll clearly be able to tell the difference. Always clean your tools up. Make sure you don't have any of the rubbing compound on your fingers, because it will get in there and it will ruin the whole job. If you get oil on in the threads, the Loctite will not hold. So here's a controversial thing that I always do. I use CPL break free, and I actually put it on the lap surfaces so it keeps the gunk and grime out of there, even though it is nearly 100% contact. Dust will find its way in there. So let me see if I can get you in here and show you. See where it started to speckle, where it has, there's a little white spots that are missing. That means that it is starting to grind away the anodized coating. So that is nearly 100% contact. That's the front one. Here's the back. I'll show you the rings. See, that one has a little bit of glimmer in the middle, but there is plenty of contact surface. You can see that one, how it started to speckle also. That's the lapping compound going through the anodized coating. So then we'll make sure that our scope is in the right position and not touching. And I'll double check this. I'll put my head down here and I'll look in there and make sure the focal point is on the right spot. This one's not going to stay up there. That's why I have to use a separate one. It's about as even as it's going to get. I didn't put oil on them, did I? Doesn't take much. Now, I put Loctite on these. I put a little bit just on the tip. See that? There's a little bit on there. And then I take two screws, take the one that I just put the Loctite on there, and then just roll the threads around together. And you can see there's a little bit on both. That's all it takes. When you tighten these down, there's a pattern in the manual. You see how there's a pattern. And these drive to 28 inch-pounds. So you do that pattern and you go front to back. And you just keep doing that pattern until all the screws are tight and they do not rotate anymore before your torque wrench clicks. 28. So I'm going back and forth until they're snug and there's still a gap. There's barely a gap here. There's a little bit more of a gap on that side. So we'll tighten that side down a little bit more. I'm just gradually tightening them evenly, not just going straight all the way to the torque spec and sneaking up on it. And the tightening pattern, boom. Okay. So you see that they all clicked once. So if I go back to that first one I did, it's still going to move before it clicks. See how it moved before it clicked? So you want to keep going through that pattern and torquing it. That one moved a little bit too, until they do not rotate anymore. See, those are not rotating anymore. Alright, so you may have thought that I just did a whole bunch of unnecessary torquing, but they were moving ever so slightly until I went around twice without them rotating at all. So this ring is nice and tight. I'll try to get a good shot close up, but the rings are not touching. Alright, there we go. 1 hour to mount a scope. So next time your gunsmith charges you to mount this and he mounts it like this, remember it took him an hour to do it. If he didn't mount it like this, you're gonna have issues. So if you're paying a little extra, it's probably not a bad thing. So I'm going to go ahead and bore sight this for the customer, and then he's going to go test fire it and go kill an elk. Thanks for watching.